we're going to take a look at one of the most exciting sectors in the gambling industry, which is the crypto casino space. We've got a special guest with us. What do we mean by crypto casinos? Well, basically it's just casinos where you can deposit, bet and withdraw funds using cryptocurrencies like a Bitcoin or an Ethereum or a Tether. They're very similar to a lot of traditional operators in many ways, but also very different in a bunch of ways, which we'll get into. The sector's received a lot of attention in recent times, thanks largely to a handful of pioneers like Estate.com based here in Australia. And they've expanded the market and really led innovation in the wider industry. I'm joined today by three people who can share some insights about this topic. First, we've got Tom Waterhouse, who's founder and chief investment officer at Waterhouse VC. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael. Good to be on. Ishan, Oscar.
We also have Oscar Silva, who's our investment analyst in London. Oscar works closely with Tom, analysing all the opportunities in the space. Thanks for joining us so late over there, Oscar.
No, you're all good. Great to be on.
And very pleased to welcome Ishan Haque. So Ishan's part of the founding team at Shuffle.com. And Shuffle has become one of those really fast-growing platforms in the crypto casino space. They haven't been around that long, but they've really made their mark. And we're really happy to have Ishan here today. Welcome, Ishan.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tom and Waterhouse VC. Pleased to be here.
Great. So before we dive in, I'll just give a quick background on Waterhouse VC and what we do. We run an investment fund that focuses on the technology layer of the global gambling industry. So many people joining today on the call, they'll be familiar with the consumer-facing brands like a Tabcorp or a Sportsbet here in Australia. There's other ones like DraftKings in the US, there's Paddy Power in the UK. And our focus is actually on the businesses powering these operations behind the scenes. So it could be a data on the odds feeds, on the horse racing. It could be customer engagement software. It could be companies providing affiliate marketing services to the gambling companies. And that's the B2B sector where we see the most attractive opportunities and where we've developed a particular edge through Tom's industry experience, a deep network in the industry, and an in-house tech team that lends us their expertise in technology. We combine this focus on the tech layer with taking options in businesses. Rather than a standard equity investment, we're actually taking options in businesses, and that's a different sort of risk reward profile, and it's worked out really well for the investors. The fund has compounded at over 96% per annum before fees for over 5 years now. I'll turn to Ishan shortly because we really want to spend today talking as much about Shuffle as possible. But yeah, just to set the scene on Shuffle, I guess in my own words, because many Aussies joining this call won't have actually accessed Shuffle because you can't access it here in Australia. They've built one of the most comprehensive crypto gaming platforms in a very short amount of time. They've got traditional casino games that you can play online. They've got a sports book. They've got their own proprietary games, which you might think of as like a mix of like an arcade/slot style game. They've got a cryptocurrency token that can be used on the platform, and they've also got a new lottery product. So a ton of interesting stuff to get into. Before we dive in, I'll just give a quick disclaimer. Today's webinar is intended for wholesale investors only, so everything discussed today is not investment advice. Please consult an advisor if you're going to make an investment decision. It's also worth mentioning just quickly that there's actually no formal relationship between Waterhouse VC and Shuffle. The fund's not invested in Shuffle. We're really just talking to Ishan today because, well, it's an opportunity for us to pick the brains of someone who's living and breathing this and kicking goals in the space. So, Oscar, I'll start with a question for you. You spent a lot of time talking with the crypto casino entrepreneurs, many of the tech suppliers to those businesses. Maybe you could start us off by just helping everyone understand what's the scale of this market, not only the global market, but the actual crypto casino space and the unregulated space, and where crypto casinos sort of fit into the picture.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's definitely good to give some context here. I think the scale of this market often surprises people. Flutter recently reported, who are the largest listed gambling company in the world, they recently reported that they expect the gambling industry to hit $578 billion by 2030, which is nearly $1 trillion Australian dollars. The figures we're looking at represent gross gaming revenue, or GGR, which is basically bets taken minus winnings paid out. So it's the revenue pool from which all industry costs are paid. whether that's marketing, staff, taxes, tech. So it's a pretty important metric. Breaking this market down, you've got the regulated players, which represent the most significant chunk of this pie. Within that, you've got the likes of Ladbrokes, Tabcorp, FanDuel, and these are adhering to strict gambling regulations. And then you've got this grey market section, which will be the subject of the discussion today, expected to reach about $210 billion by 2030. And in that, the crypto casinos operate. What do we mean by grey markets? Well, there aren't explicit regulations where these businesses are operating. They can take players from all over the world, and they're slightly different to black market operators, where gambling is explicitly banned. Looking at growth rates, the regulated space still growing at around 10 to 15% annually, which is pretty exciting. You've got new markets opening up like Brazil. Lots happening in Canada as well with Ontario. I think there'll be some states there which are pretty envious of the taxable revenue. But then this crypto section is really exciting and has experienced rapid growth over the last couple of years. We're talking 100% year on year.
Yeah, interesting. So there's obviously this huge revenue pool to target, and all, I guess arguably, even though that unregulated grey market it looks like a third of the industry on that chart, it's more lightly regulated. It's much less taxed. Arguably, that I guess the value there is almost on par with perhaps the regulated sector. Oscar, where do the crypto operators individually, like the different players there, how do they sort of stack up against the traditional, well-known, listed regulated players in terms of size? How do they sort of stack up in rankings?
Sure. This data is from 2022, so it's slightly outdated. But I think it gives a bit of context on where the major operators are, but also I think today we'll discover how quickly these crypto operators are going to eat into that. You've got the scale operators like Flutter, Entain, 365. They've dominated the license space for a good while now. Flutter's been on this extraordinary M&A charge over the last decade or so. They've got some phenomenal brands under their umbrella, the likes of Paddy Power, Betfair, Sportsbet, FanDuel as well. Entain similarly has been pretty extraordinary over the last 20, 30 years really. And they've got brands like Ladbrokes and Coral. Coral and Ladbrokes, they've had a massive high street presence for the last 50 years, represented all over the world. These businesses operate globally. But yeah, with these crypto operators, Stake is probably, I guess, the most tangible example, just because of their numbers were recently released. In 2023, they had gross gaming revenue of 2.6 billion, which, I think that's expected to hit 4 billion this year. It's mega growth. And that was up from 100 million in 2017 when they first launched. And then, you've got the likes of Roobet, Shuffle, and Sportsbet.io, which are making rapid headway.
Yeah. Is there anything you could add to that, Ishan, around the rankings there? Like, is there any sort of data that you guys as operators look at where you can actually see how the crypto players are going?
Yeah, I guess in terms of crypto, because it's crypto, you can actually see deposit volumes on chain. So there is a website, Tanzanite, where they constantly rank deposit volumes, and you can kind of reverse engineer. If you know what the edges are and what the products are offered, you could probably do a ranking of revenues as well. But so in terms of Stake's right at the top, I'd say that they're quite literally 10 times larger than everybody else. But I'd say Stake's at the top, and then you've got the group of the other crypto casinos like sort of Roobet, Shuffle, BC Game, the YOLO brands, Bit Casino and Sportsbet.io. Gamdom is another one. And so, we're the new entrant into that sort of top five. Everyone else has probably been operating for the past, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But they've stayed there consistently. And so, yeah, that's probably, in terms of the rankings for crypto operators, it's currently where it lies.
Yeah, interesting. So I'd love to get to Shuffle Story in a minute, but maybe you can just give us your take on what are the reasons that these 10 to 20 sort of big name crypto casinos have actually scaled so quickly into those top rankings globally? Like, what have there been like tailwinds behind the whole sector, or is it also just these guys operate in a certain way that have allowed them to do it?
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons. Crypto as a backdrop itself is probably a big reason that's rapidly growing. There's more and more adopters every single day. That's somewhat correlated to prices. So, when Bitcoin goes to 100K or goes to 110, 120, there's going to be more of the populace that's adopting crypto. So that crypto as a backdrop, and that just getting the network effects of that is a tailwind. The other is that it's just fundamentally a better user experience. You could use Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tron. There's a bunch of currencies. Litecoin is one where you can deposit into a crypto casino pretty instantly. You can play, big or sometimes bigger than a fiat casino, and then you can withdraw, on a Sunday night within an hour. It's just a fundamentally, when you talk about the rails of crypto compared to traditional rails of a fiat experience, it's a whole lot better than for a gambler that wants to punt. And then probably the last one I'll touch on is I do think if you compare, a lot of fiat operators have had sort of licensing edge where, because they have a license, they can sort of there's less competition. The barrier to entry is harder to enter those regions. So they can kind of chill on creating like this insane user experience or really invest in that. Whereas in the crypto space, I think you could argue that a lot of the products that Shuffle is building, or Stake, or Gamdom, Roobet, these are highly fine-tuned products, built straight to built unparalleled sort of experiences, and do things that are a bit more original. As you mentioned, those proprietary games, those were really born in the crypto casino era, we can talk about them a bit more later on. But I'd say it's those sort of main three reasons, and maybe the last one might have some correlation, is that a lot of the crypto teams tend to be a little bit younger, a little bit more energy, want to do different things, build different things, not tackle it the same way. So that might have something to do with it as well. Just offering something new to the space.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. It just seems like there's a handful of crypto casinos where they're run by sometimes Aussies. We're probably overrepresented there, and also people in their 20s. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. There's a lot of, out of the top 5, I think three of them are Australians, or they were Australian based. Stake, the YOLO brands with Tim, and then now you've got us. There's something in the water here. I know we're like this, whatever, the second highest in terms of losses per capita. I think Singapore's number 1 and Australia's number 2 in gambling losses. So punting's in our blood. So maybe something a little to do with that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I also remember seeing a couple of years ago in the headlines where Stake was sort of pioneering using streaming as marketing.
Yeah.
Do you think that's another big factor there with the growth of the casinos?
That's a pretty huge one. In terms of, I'd say Roobet, Stake were really the ones, back. This wasn't too long ago. This was This really took off in 2020 during COVID. But so the way that traditional operators, they will mainly get distribution through affiliates, and traditional affiliates. It might be a banner ad on an SEO ranking site, or some forums, or the more traditional routes. So for what they did different, what sort of the crypto casinos did different, was they started partnering up with influencers, and not just influencers that will, take a photo of them playing and then upload it to Instagram with a caption and people like it. And that's where the connection ends. They are live streaming themselves, playing the product, educating people about the product in real time. They ride the highs, they ride the lows with them. They'll be sitting down watching them for hours. It's not just a like on a post. It's, you're literally, some of these people will watch them for hours on end every single day. And so I think that is, a highly engaging form of content and marketing that, I just haven't seen be replicated well in sort of the fiat space. It's been primarily crypto casinos doing well. And I think that does lend into what I said about the teams are a bit younger. This is the stuff that we watch. So, a lot of the crypto casino operators, they're like gamers beforehand, or they grew up playing video games. And if you're familiar with Twitch, twitch.com, it used to be twitch.tv, that used to be primarily just video games. It still is primarily video games. But, gambling content had a rise there. And then there's a whole story with, Stake being banned off there. So they ended up starting their own live streaming service. But this is the stuff that the stake operators, loved watching. We love watching. We all worked with influencers before doing these crypto casinos. So it made sense that we'd be the ones to use this as a marketing channel.
I'd love to get into to Shuffle's story now. I've pulled this chart off your LinkedIn page, actually, which you used to post a monthly update on the turnover, and it's sort of stopped in August, which is interesting. You've obviously reached that 2 billion in monthly turnover just ridiculously quickly in less than 2 years. It'd be good to maybe just start at the beginning and just if you could tell us a bit more about how that initial team came together, what the initial vision was for Shuffle. You obviously saw, how big the market was and how well Stake was doing. But what did you see? Where did you see Shuffle coming into it, and what were the gaps in the market that you guys wanted to exploit?
Yeah, sure. So initially, there's a few of us on the founding team, but Noah Dummett, he's the CEO of Shuffle. He was previously in the exchange business. So he helped grow BitMEX, which was the number one crypto exchange in the world back in maybe 2016, 2017. So he was an early employee there. Then he jumped over to Alameda and FTX, which is a pretty known story now. But that was at the time, was rising the ranks and one of the biggest exchanges in the world. And he sort of left there in 21 thinking about what to do next. And, he was from Australia. I'm from Australia. The crypto exchange space, especially at that time, was very fragmented. The US had Coinbase and, Asia had Binance and Bybit, and Australia kind of had a lot of these smaller other crypto exchanges popping up locally. No one sort of had, there wasn't the main big player here. So initially he was looking to do that, to start an Australian exchange. But then the more he thought about it, casinos, Stake was popping off at the time. And so that sort of, he was kind of looking at that, and a lot of the early team, we're all kind of young. We made money in crypto. And so what do you do with that? You gamble it. So we're all kind of players of all these casinos. When you look at it, the exchange business and the casino business are pretty similar. They're similarly licensed. FTX and BitMEX and all this, they were either in the Seychelles or in Bahamas, licensed there. Crypto casinos are mainly licensed out in Curacao. The business model is somewhat similar as well. A lot of exchanges, when you make a bet on there, they take a transaction fee. We call that house edge. And then the sort of scale that we saw that casinos were starting to reach were similar to the exchanges. So let's say a Coinbase, was doing $8 million of revenue a day. Stake was sort of reaching those levels. And then a Rollbit was doing $2 million a day. FTX was doing around $2 million a day. So the scale, the business model, and the sort of licensing was similar enough. But on the casino front, there was a lot less competition. You have Stake, and then you have everybody else sort of down here. So we thought, okay, if we were to start a competing crypto casino, do we have an edge here? Do we have an edge to start a duopoly with stake.com? And what they did correct, in my opinion, was the streaming stuff was definitely a big tick. And to do that well, you need to understand influence. You need to work with influencers in the past. And for us, a few of the team, we worked with some of the biggest influencers in the world in our past businesses, Mr. Beast, Pokimane. These are names that a lot of people, at least in the gaming space, know about. So we thought we could bring edge with the influencers on the product side to build a great crypto product on crypto rails. A lot of our engineers were building the biggest crypto exchanges in the world. And like I said, the product base is pretty similar when you understand how to build on crypto rails. So we could compete on the product front and the streaming front. So let's do this. So back in 2022, May 2022, that's when Noah bought the domain for shuffle.com. It was a bit controversial at the time because it costed $1 million US. So yeah, a pretty big commitment to branding. Shortly after the domain, I joined in, one of the executives on the founding team. I primarily handle BD and growth. And then we launched in February of 23 last year. So headcount at that time was, I don't know, probably like 12 people. And, we were pre-product and pre-launch and $0 in revenue. Fast forward to 23 to 24. Today we do more than a sort of US 2 billion in wager volume. A 9-figure revenue run rate. Casinos are built to be profitable, so that the business is actually profitable in like month 5. So it's a pretty substantial cash generative business today. And so, that's kind of the fast version of why starting it and where we are now. And we can definitely head into more detail of the journey.
Yeah, it'd be great to hear how you sort of got your first 100 or 1,000 sort of customers. Was it really just going out to and doing hand-to-hand combat, or is there any sort of clever growth strategies you guys figured out?
Yeah, I think when we initially launched, we didn't have money. So to give a sort of fundraising history, a lot of early Shuffle was bootstrapped, and then to get it to launch, it was a pretty tumultuous time. FTX collapsed, and then the crypto bear market was in full swing. So we needed a little bit of money to do that. So we raised about 1.3 US. It's not a lot of money, but so we didn't have a lot of money to just plow into marketing to begin with. So we literally just sent our platform to a lot of our internal network. And because we were all young crypto people beforehand, a lot of our friends and network were all young crypto people. And that was our user base. We were the users. And so we sent that out, and that probably got us to our first, $1 million in revenue in a few months. Maybe it was like month 3 or something like that. But after a while, we're cool people, but we don't have that many friends. So when we sort of tapped out our internal network and we had a little bit of money to spend, we had to have a differentiated approach to distribution. A lot of the traditional channels I talked about before that traditional casinos usually do, which is affiliate marketing, that's become a very saturated market. 50% rev share up to 60% rev share, and then there's on these SEO sites there's listing fees. There's some of them want rev share and CPA, so you have to pay for every single user they sign up. It can get very expensive, and a lot of the other casinos sort of dominate that because they have unlimited, or what seems to be unlimited bankroll and spend. So that kind of was out of our mark. Then we looked, obviously we want to do streaming. That's where our edge comes in. But the streaming deals are also pretty expensive. You need quite a lot of money to sort of compete in that. And so, that's dominated primarily by Stake and I'd say Gamdom and Roobet. And so we're like, okay, how the hell do we market this to people and scale beyond, whatever, like $1 million in revenue? So what we found was a lot of crypto savvy users are on Twitter or on X, or what's formerly Twitter. And there's a lot of, we found this class of hybrid affiliate / influencers where there's people on Twitter that, they might not have 1 million followers. They might have 9,000 followers, but they're highly engaging on Twitter with the community. And then they funnel that community over to, let's say, a WhatsApp group chat or a Discord server where they're constantly sharing their bets and constantly chatting to their followers. And so, as I mentioned before, live streaming is when you're literally someone's watching you play it. This is like another form of like highly engaging way to connect with your followers, where you're just constantly talking to them like you're their friend in a group chat. And this was something that wasn't bidded on by any of the casinos, fiat casinos, the crypto casinos. And so these people were very cheap. Some of them would only work on affiliate rate. They wouldn't want us to pay anything upfront. But yeah, so they would have 9,000 followers and maybe 1,000 people in a group chat. And those 1,000 people in a group chat would end up making us millions of dollars of monthly NGR. And yeah, that strategy only lasted for so long, because after a while, all the other casinos were like, how is Shuffle growing? And they saw that and they ended up, they started bidding on those people. But that really got us to, I'd say, up to like 200 million US in monthly wager turnover, doing that strategy. And in particular, there were certain regions that worked really well in. So we sort of bootstrapped in Japan as a region. And really, none of us were Japanese. So, a lot of the early days was, going on ChatGPT and saying, hey, pretend I'm a native Japanese speaker, and I'm chatting to another native Japanese speaker. And, and it's funny, some of the messages, we would send over something and they're like, haha, the tone that you're sending this to me in, it's like you're treating me like a baby. And we're like, yeah, okay, that, at some point we had to hire some Japanese speaking people here in Melbourne. But that was focusing on a region that wasn't dominated by a big player, and sort of finding that hybrid model of affiliate and influencer and tapping into those highly engaged communities was probably a differentiated way. And we had to do that. We didn't have money. We had to get creative. And that sort of got us to that 200 million mark. And then at that point, we saw that kind of tapering off, and we saw, a lot of the competitors start bidding on those. So we're like, okay, what's our next leg of growth? And we're all crypto people. A bit of my background, I was an early investor in some of the biggest crypto companies. Animoca Brands is one of them. Noah was a part of all the big crypto exchanges. And so we thought, let's lean into our strength. I don't know why we didn't do this from day one. We probably should have done it from day one, but we were like, let's launch a cryptocurrency token that will power our platform. And for our power users, if they wager with our token, they will get a lot of extra added benefits, more bonusing. They can, now that we've launched our lottery, they can play in the lottery, they can stake the Shuffle tokens. And yeah, there's a list of sort of, there's value accrual as well for people that want to speculate on the token as well. If the casino grows, theoretically, the token price should go up. So there's a few other things there. So like, let's launch the token, and there's a lot of network effects with the token. If a lot of people on Twitter, they will tweet about tokens and they'll tweet the price chart, and it's pretty similar to maybe the community here on like in Australia with ASX stocks and people, Hot Copper and Twitter, people sharing their investments and stuff. So you just get a lot of marketing that you don't pay for by having a token as well. And then probably the biggest thing with the token is we do these things called airdrops. They're these big, yearly marketing campaigns where we incentivize people, hey, play on our platform, do as much wager as you can. And one time, at a certain point of the year, we're going to airdrop you free Shuffle tokens. So, a lot of the gambling space look at it as a way as like an extra yearly bonus that they get to be rewarded for their play. So really with bonusing and the token and everything, if you're a crypto gambler, it made a lot of sense to play on Shuffle because you're getting so much more added rewards. And you could probably, if you're an Excel person, you could probably work out that your effective edge or your effective RTP is higher because you're getting so much added rewards and whatnot. So We did that. We launched a token, and that took us from probably about we tripled in a month. We went from 200 million to almost $1 billion in wager volume. That was pretty crazy because at the time, I think we were maybe only 25, 30 people. And then we had to quickly get to, hire, 10 support staff in a matter of like 2 weeks and get some VIP hosts and had to sort of rapidly scale. And then, so that took us to, $1 billion in wager volume and then $1 billion to $2 billion. Now that's really been about, getting to product parity with the competitors. It takes quite a while to build a good product. It doesn't happen overnight. All of our engineering, all of our development happens in-house. And so, the past, of 22 months that we've been live has just been about, let's get our product as good as the rest. And I think doing that really unlocked sort of players from other casinos going like, hey, I can realistically go from, stop playing on a stake or a BC game or a Gamdom and hop over to Shuffle because they have everything that those guys have plus more, plus the token, plus the lottery, plus these proprietary games. And so, that's kind of the brief history of how we got here. And there's a lot of exciting things going forward. We don't want to stop here. 5 billion, 10 billion, 20 billion monthly turnover. It's all on the cards for us. There's no point of being in this game and being number 2. So we've got a lot of plans.
I appreciate you running us through it. I actually I listened to an interview with the CEO Noah pretty recently, and he actually said, you guys want to be the number 1 player. Maybe you can't share everything, but what are the things that get you to number 1?
So there's a few things. One is the past, as I said, last 2 years have been about getting to product parity. The next few years is about building the product moat. So once we either get a completely new customer or we get a customer that's from another casino, how do we get them to stick to Shuffle and keep playing on Shuffle? The Powerball lottery product is just a little taste of that. Some of our new original games that we've got that we're going to release soon. Ones that you just couldn't get on any other casinos or any other sort of competing products. Another one's just building the trust around the product. I'd say Shuffle's a bit of a toy at the moment. I mean, it's a pretty big business now, but it's still a toy when you go on Shuffle. There's no brand ambassadors showing you or trust builders on the homepage. If you go to like a Stake's really great at it, or a Gamdom or BC game, they will get sports teams to sort of represent them, or they'll get a massive celebrity like a Drake in Stake's case. So it's about we've got the bankroll now to do some of these sort of big brand sponsorships and these tier 1 trust builders. So I think that's a part of it as well. And then mainly, to me at least, sometimes it boils down to the basics. Can someone come on the Shuffle? Can they deposit big instantly? Can they play big? And then can they withdraw big, no matter what their position is, win or loss? I think that's where crypto casinos have done really well compared to the fiat ones. There's a lot of horror stories on the fiat ones where, you win big and you have to do this now or this now. You have to wait this long to get your money back. And that's something that we've sort of historically, or the sector, the crypto casino sector has done really well. And then,
so maybe just zoom in on that. Like, what is the sort of limit that maybe a smaller casino can offer, where you can only deposit or play up to this level, and then what's the sort of level that the bigger ones are able to offer?
The bigger ones, they can go up to, it seems like infinity. Stake would probably do the biggest limits out of, or Stake and the YOLO brands, big casino, they'll probably do like on the high limits, and we kind of compete somewhere in there as well. Our plan is to be mass market, so we want to appeal to the smaller users, the medium users, and the bigger users. We're trying to do all three, and different casinos will offer different experiences. I think Stake is more mass market as well, whereas maybe like a Bit Casino is more targeted towards VIP. But yeah, for us, on Shuffle, you can comfortably come on and deposit $2 million, run it up to $10 million, withdraw $10 million, and you'll be fine. That's something that's kind of the area or the upper limits of where we're at currently. And that, as the platform grows, I mean, we will obviously offer more. But I think not just for crypto casinos, but all sort of betting sites in general, sometimes it's about surviving. I think some platforms get sort of they scale too fast. They take on too much risk. We're sort of, we want to be here. We want to be the betting brand, especially in crypto over the next decade. And so, sometimes we've said no to a lot of players that go like, oh, we'll just go back to like a stake or whatever like that, just because we're not ready for them. So yeah, that hopefully gives you some color on the limits there.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. We'll come back to Shuffle because I've noticed a fair few questions come through while we've been talking. But I just wanted to throw to Tom. We see a few opportunities in the space, Tom, back of the growth of the crypto casino industry. We talk a lot about how these Aussie guys, stake.com, provide a bit of an inspiration and a bit of a playbook for the new entrants. What do you see, Tom, as the most exciting opportunities in this space?
Look, I see there's a lot of parallels at the moment with the changing the guard moment of Bet365 20 years ago. The growth that these crypto operators, the likes of Shuffle, Stake, Sportsbet.io are having, I haven't seen in the gambling industry before. It's just unbelievable. And so there's so much opportunity for them. They're multi-billion-dollar businesses now. You're seeing the likes of the Stake founders, Sportsbet.io founders on our BRW rich lists, huge players globally. And it's fantastic to see, as Ishan said, 3 of the main top 5 players are Australian, which is incredible credit to Australia. But obviously with that growth, there's huge opportunity in the supply side. But the one area that we're working on at the moment, probably taking up most of our time, is really on the Shopify of crypto betting. To get a leading product like Shuffle and Stake, it requires unlimited work, engineering talent, and a lot of time. But there's a huge long tail, we believe, in the crypto space. So to give you in context, there's 130 online bookmakers in the Australian market with high taxes, high friction, and so on. Back when there was less friction before the tab came in, there was 6,000 SP bookies in just New South Wales. There were 400 bookies at Randwick every Saturday, let alone all the other tracks around New South Wales. So we believe with less friction and the ability to get up and going very quickly, there's a huge opportunity for a long tail of these followers trying to emulate the success of Shuffle and Stake and so on. So we've been focusing on that. Now there's a lot of competitors in the space that you can go and white label a platform. But we think if you can offer a service, a Shopify experience, that in a day, you're up and running with your own branded platform, with your payment rails, with your data feeds and so on, that there's going to be a lot of young aspiring entrepreneurs that want to enter this exciting space and really follow what these guys have done and the amazing job they've done to grow billion-dollar businesses in, well, it's not tens of years, it's in a couple of years. It's just amazing. So we've been spending a lot of time on that. Obviously, we've got to execute the opportunity and acquire the option in that type of business, but that's something we're working on, and hopefully we'll update our investors early in the new year.
We might get started on questions. We've had a few come through during the week and a few come through while we've been talking. I'll start with one from Alex, and this is probably a good one for you, Ishan. You touched on some of the advantages of being a crypto casino, like having the payment rails, being able to do the bigger limits. What are the main challenges, though? Do the traditional operators have any advantages over the crypto ones?
Like I'd mentioned, the biggest challenge is that you cannot do PPC. So you can't just pay for ads and acquire a user. You have to get creative. That's primarily the reason why a lot of these new age crypto casinos like Stake went to influencers and started working with them. So if you don't have an edge in that, it's a very complicated and challenging road ahead. I'd say like a big casino or a Sportsbet.io or Blaze. There's a few other ones that they pick a region and then they're really good at sort of getting or dominating the affiliate market. And so I'd say it's highly competitive on the marketing front. Everything else seems like way easier. From what I've heard, it's a lot easier to operate a crypto casino than a traditional fiat casino on almost all respects, except for just the marketing. But I will say maybe the product side is probably a good one as well. When Tom mentioned, there's probably a few out there that let you white label a crypto casino, but the products aren't that great, and it's not full suite as well. So I agree with Tom, actually, that there is an opportunity there to I'm looking at every single crypto casino that launches every single week. There's a lot, and there'll be a lot more when people are seeing stake making billions of dollars, and then when they start hearing about Shuffle, they're gonna, I think there's gonna be a lot more. And to really compete in that space, a lot of the players are used to Shuffle and stake-like experiences. I do think the white label sort of brands need to sort of have a better baseline to work on, and there's currently not really that I know of a sort of operator that does that. And so, yeah, hopefully that sort of answers that.
Yeah, and just talking about the product suite, we've got a question from Tim. What role do you see as racing having in the online gambling new frontier? I assume racing referring to the three horse harness and greyhound racing codes. Maybe you want to take that one, Tom, first.
Yeah, look, racing was built in many ways just a gambling product. It's a terrific product in that you've got high margin, you've got high frequency, and really until Stake took the racing product for racing and sports, crypto operators that focused casino first and then sportsbook, and that makes a lot of sense because racing's really had a stronghold in jurisdictions that do not have online gaming. But I think racing globally has a big role to play because it's a great product. It's interesting. It's got a high skill level, so which is interesting for a bettor. It requires nous and experience and spending time on it. So it's very sticky once you get into it. But also it's very attractive for the operator because if they can get their customers on that product offering, it's generally very high margin. So I think Stake's going to be very interesting how it progresses for them once they have the full suite. And I think, as Ishan touched on, the top operators globally, they're going to have everything. You're going to have the best casino product, the best sportsbook product, and the best racing product. Now, whether racing is 70% of the wagering dollar like it is in Australia, well, that probably won't be right for crypto casinos, but it only has to be a small percentage of this huge pie globally. And it's a huge benefit to the racing industry in race fields and all the other fees that come. So I think it's very exciting for racing.
Anything to add there, Ishan?
Yeah, I think Tom covered most of it, but the only thing I'll add is I do think there's an overlap between people who historically love racing and the crypto in terms of the appetite, high frequency, that type of betting. I do think there's some overlap there. And I will say that's also another large opportunity. Crypto operators historically haven't offered great sports betting products in general. It's always been casino first. I still look at the Oz bookies and some of the products from the traditional space. They're a lot better than what the crypto guys currently offer, including us. We're still building towards a good, just in general, sports betting product. And so on that side, I think there's still a huge opportunity. We're all kind of, chasing to create the best product in each vertical, casino, sportsbook, lottery. But yeah, that is probably one where a lot of crypto casinos lack in. And a lot of the top operators, they will sort of, white label their sportsbook. And there's some big businesses there. But yeah, there's some overlap there. That I see a lot of opportunities in that space. And no one's really, got it completely right yet.
We've got a question from Adrian. He's keen to understand the breakdown in terms of turnover or GGR, if you're willing, on casino versus proprietary games versus sports betting. Are you able to give us any color there?
Yeah, I'll give you some high level there. casino is the bread and butter of our business. So in terms of volume, let's say of that 2 billion, a lot of it, most of it would be our original games that we make. Now that's also like a very competitive sort of market. I'd say like between us and Stake and maybe like a Aruba a little bit. Building those original games, they look from the outside, they look like silly arcadey games, but they are pretty hard to build and to scale. There's one called Plinko where you've got these balls dropping down into sort of multipliers. A lot of the gamblers, they want to drop 500 Plinko balls in half a second, and you have 30,000 people doing that at the same time, and they want their bets. There's no lag. They don't want to feel like that's actually a pretty hard sort of engineering issue to tackle. And so we actually have some news coming out on that front where we're sort of starting a game studio. I've met a lot of operators that were saying, hey, can we just buy your games and license your games? I do think there's probably some opportunity there as well, because they are pretty hard to build. But yeah, so most of our volume will come from our proprietary games. We do good slot volume. So those proprietary games have 1% house edge. And then the slots will obviously differ between 3 to 5%. So technically we would make more money on the slots, but we have a lot more volume on our proprietary ones. So there's a lot of revenue goes through that. And then our sportsbook, in terms of revenue, is actually pretty material. Casino will do more, but not by a whole lot, to be honest. So we take some big action on our sportsbook, but in terms of volume, it's obviously very different. Volume sportsbook is less than 10%, but in terms of revenue, it far exceeds 10%. So the sports angle is very interesting for us, and that's probably where we've done the most product updates and focused on in the last 6 months. Because as I said, historically, crypto casinos have really lacked on the sports side. So yeah. Hopefully that gives you a little color there.
Thomas has asked, how do you deal with sharp sports betting action if you have increasingly larger limits? Do you go down the path of limiting the punters like traditional bookmakers, or do you just adjust the lines based off their action?
I'd say it's probably more of the latter. It's less of, like I meant, crypto, like they have this reputation of not blocking off a punter just because they've won. Our sports guys are kind of all over it in terms of if someone is a very sharp bettor. But I'd say you're going to find larger limits on these crypto platforms, whether it's a Stake or a Shuffle, it's probably a much better user experience than going over to a fiat bookie for some of these markets that we offer in. But yeah, I'd say it's more of the latter and less on the front one.
Yeah, sure. Question from Mark: do you see the likes of Stake and Shuffle entering the Australian market soon, and in what capacity?
I think Stake is looking to do that. For us, we're really focused on crypto. So we only offer crypto. We have on-ramps to crypto on our site, so you can use your card details and deposit using fiat to buy crypto, and it's in your wallet. But we don't actually let you play with fiat on our site. And so for us personally, we have built our product in like a modular approach where if we wanted to attach a license to a piece of our product or a part of our product, we could pretty immediately offer it in a certain region. So we do have, plans to eventually go into some of these sort of, I'd say, more white markets in the future. But, I'd say the main goal for us is just, the crypto market. I'm very excited about the crypto market and how fast growing it is. I'd love for us to be a meaningful portion of bets, by 2030, of all crypto bets, whether it's casino, sportsbook, lottery, or our games on other casinos. I'd want it to be powered by Shuffle Bet in some capacity. So yeah, crypto is the main focus for us, but never say never. It's Australian market seems, compared to crypto, like I mentioned, it seems a lot harder and more of a headache to operate in. Just the regulations, taxes, and there's a bunch of other reasons that and it's already highly competitive. There's some really great products out there already in the Australian market, whereas the crypto market, like I said, there's only really a few big players, and then there's I'm guessing there's probably about 1,000 to 1,500 crypto casinos that do make money. Although they might be on a much smaller scale, there's still a lot of opportunity there, and crypto as a whole, the market is so large and it's going to continuously grow that there can be a lot of players, and there can be a lot of big businesses built, and they can coexist with each other. It's not like a winner takes all type market.
Mark has asked another question. Are there any concerns of government regulations or taxation or interruption to the use of crypto with gambling, especially in some more traditional regulated markets who don't allow it, i.e. Australia? I guess maybe the question there is just, you see a lot of countries crack down on crypto occasionally. Maybe it's not Australia, maybe it's other ones, but can that interrupt your business at all?
I think there'll be some countries that will go towards that. On the whole, I think the directional bet here is that crypto is going to get more widely adopted and countries will be more open to it. You can see the red wave just happened in the States, and everyone there's very pro crypto. I think crypto regulation in a positive way is coming sooner than most people think. I think a lot of people were sort of maybe thinking and stuck in the past 5-10 years and the attitude towards crypto. I think that tide has shifted. It's gone the other way, and so there may be some countries that might take a more harsh approach, but United States, Hong Kong, there's a few regions that are very pro crypto, especially and what they're doing there. So I think as a whole, Singapore's getting pro crypto. Yeah, I think there's a few there that a lot of the major powers in the world are shifting towards adopting crypto. It's the way things are going. So eventually, I think there's going to be a lot more progress in that in the next 5-10 years, and then that might trickle down into crypto gambling. But any countries where it posed an issue for us, at least for now, we can operate with our Curacao license in a lot of places. We don't do it in the United States currently, or Australia, or UK, and there's a few other little countries, but there's a world outside of those countries, and there's a lot of people hungry to make a bet on products like on Shuffle and Stake and whatnot. So I don't believe so it'd make any meaningful interruption to our business.
It's probably a good point to ask a question from Joe. You mentioned earlier in the piece that one of the early markets was Japan. Like Joe asked, how do you decide which markets you will take bets on? You've got so many to pick from. I guess you would take them from all the places you can, but I guess how do you pick the markets you actually sort of formally launch into and try and go after?
Yeah, I think a part of that is doing your research into some regions and looking at all the competitors and seeing the penetration from all the competitors. So when we started, I remember sending Noah this massive sort of research report I did on Japan and saying that, like, hey, this is the place for us to go and look at. There's a lot of it's a very fragmented market. The bettors from that market, when you looked at just like, it could be as simple as looking at the support messages. Someone from another country would bet $5 and lose $5 and spend 6 hours of our support time. Whereas in Japan, they were betting big and being very polite and respectful about it. So we're like, all right, that's the type of player that we kind of like. And that's a region that's very fragmented. Like I said, there's not there wasn't one player that sort of dominates all. And so, we kind of made, based on a few vectors there, the decision to, hey, let's really push into that market. Let's localize the site. Let's run these campaigns. We've actually made a proprietary game called Waifu Tower based on an anime woman. That's we did a bunch of stuff to really push towards appealing to that region. So it was about mainly really doing your research into a region and seeing if you could sort of make noise there. That's kind of how we did it.
We're coming up to the hour, so I might just take the one more question. E has asked, why have crypto gaming operators neglected the value prop in Brazil and Uruguay?
I don't think they have entirely, and I say that because so the licensing sort of structures there. I mean, the barrier to entry is a lot higher, so that's why we're not in Brazil. But that doesn't mean there's a company called Blaze that's a crypto operator that's very large in Brazil. Might be the number one sort of crypto operator and fiat licensed operator there. Yeah, I think the barrier to entry and sort of the licensing and regulation around it has made it a bit difficult. And there was a lot of news over the past year that made it difficult to go there. So it's really, for us, I think you see less there because you need to be a well-funded player. And like I mentioned before, it's pretty hard for us to raise money back last year. I don't think, especially the last few years, I think it's hard for you to be a crypto operator and raise money and take that approach. Whereas now it's a little different. I see a crypto operator once a month raising tens of millions of dollars. So yeah, I think you'll definitely see more there as people have more resources to compete in those regions that are, the barrier to entry is a lot higher.
Thank you, Ishan, for your time today. Really appreciate it. To building an amazing.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. Very, very pleased to have me. And shout out to the Waterhouse VC team for really, I think you guys sort of saw, the trend of crypto and crypto casinos in general pretty early on. I know you guys did some deals before when I met Tom last year, or maybe in 2022. You guys were already in it. So to have the foresight to jump into it is great to see. And I think more people should, from traditional space, peek into what we're doing and take a good look at it with an open mind like you guys have. So I really appreciate it.